I tell people who come to me and they say, help, I have imposter syndrome. I say, calm down. First of all, congratulations, because that means you're pushing yourself. Ambitious people experience imposter syndrome. People that are, flatlining, they're coasting, they don't experience imposter syndrome. So we should be celebrating it.
Decisions aren't built in straight lines. It's your career. They're shaped in moments of tension, the choice to stay or walk away, the promotion that comes with a price, the decision that changes everything. This is a podcast about those moments. I'm Sarah Jeanneault, and welcome to Why to the Way. What would you have done in the same situation?
We were talking about confidence with Dr. Andrea Wojnicki. And honestly, it was a conversation that I fangirled over. We chatted about this in the episode. But something truly important, because we talked about confidence. And confidence comes in different ways, for sure. And people are always looking for more confidence. But we had this great conversation and actually realizing that a lot of it is really when you're pushing yourself further, in that confidence is actually something that's a strength that you already have. It's not that you don't have. It's about being clearer on what you're trying to communicate, that then you become more confident. So it's not the lack of something, it's actually building up on the clarity of what you're going after. It really was just a wonderful conversation. And I look forward to you listening, and make sure you follow. Hi, Andrea. Thanks for coming.
I'm so excited to be here. Let's do this.
Yes. Do you have any questions before we start?
No. I today posted on LinkedIn that the best interviews are where you're kind of forced to listen because you don't know the scripted questions or answers. I really believe that. So
we're open.
Well,
yeah. And don't you find too, because you're podcasting also, I do notice that if we hand out the questions at the beginning, people want that. But then the interview feels a little more rigid than just talking. I'm curious from your point of view, why is that? Why do some people feel like they can just jump in and chat? I mean, we all know how to communicate. We do it every day. Why do we need the prep?
So I think it's control, right? So people have varying comfort levels, varying levels of confidence in what they're talking about. And I'm not saying that somebody who asks me for the scripted questions doesn't know what they're talking about, but I feel like they're just not confident maybe in the medium. Like they've maybe never done a podcast episode, or they've done so few of them, they're not really sure where it's headed and they would feel more comfortable. But I think you may have noticed this too, that people who have done a lot of podcast interviews and they are confident about their intellectual property or whatever the topic is, they'll be like, let's just jump in and do this. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. Good point. How long have you been doing your podcast?
6 years.
Wow. What made you get into this in the first place?
I was consulting at the time, mostly on branding and marketing. And I was missing some of the kind of, intellectual stimulation, and I wanted to start creating content. And someone sent me a post from Seth Godin on LinkedIn where he was looking for people to apply for his inaugural podcasting fellowship. So he was going to put together a cohort of future podcasters. And I read the description and I was like, I'm in. So I filled out the application and I said, it has to have something to do with communication. Basically, it would be talk about talk. And then I was like, oh, that's good. So I secured the trademark and I bought the URL for Talk About Talk. And then I started podcasting.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Did it evolve into something different, or is it still true to the same concept of the show at the beginning?
At the beginning, I fell into the trap that a lot of people fall into, which is it was more broad. So it was communication skills really for anyone, including I'm thinking of topics like how to communicate with your doctor to, make your appointment the most effective for you, how to communicate with your family about money, how to communicate with your grieving friend, right? So I met these were all from interviews that I was doing. And then I started to see I was getting a lot of traction with business folks and people started asking me to do workshops. And I thought, I need to double down on communication in the workplace. So now it's all, executive presence, personal branding and establishing your professional identity, and all the communication skills, like formal presentation. So, and I'm very careful not to go beyond that. And sometimes people will send me, why don't you interview this person about this? Or why don't you cover this topic? And I'm like, I am now laser focused. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten to where I am if I'd started there, but I, slowly became more focused on general communication skills, to communication skills in the workplace, to communication skills for senior leaders is where I am now.
And how does that start for people? Are they coming to you and saying, I just don't really know what to say? I mean, how do you help solidify somebody in something that we are using the tool every single day?
Oh, that's a great question, Sarah. And by the way, I do not say that unless I mean it.
Thank you.
One of my pet peeves is, the person who says, great question. And then they think about it and they answer, great question. And you're like, they're not all good questions. That Sarah was a great question.
Thank you.
We're born communicating. We come out of the womb, bawling our eyes out, right? Expressing our displeasure at the cold air in the room. So what is typical in terms of my experience? So I kind of have two target markets, right? So it's either leaders who are looking for someone to coach their team, or HR leaders who are looking for people to coach in their organization or to do workshops, right? And then there's the individuals. But the individuals that come to me, very often they have some version of the story where they have an epiphany and they realized, I have acquired many valuable technical skills and I'm doing very well, but my career progression has slowed down, or it's not advancing as quickly as I'd like it to. And I notice that the people around me who are knocking it out of the park all have exceptional communication skills. And that's what I want. And that's usually how it starts.
So that's interesting. So they've already identified that they need help in this area. So they're researching your help?
Yes, that's usually what happens. Yeah.
And then in that process, would you say, let's say they work with you for a specific amount of time, at the end of that, are they like, yep, that's exactly what I was thinking we were going to get? Or do they shift into something else?
Okay, another great question. So I am writing a book about some of the things that I coach folks on. And this woman, where is it? AJ Harper, she wrote this book called Write a Must Read, with all sorts of advice for prospective authors. And one of the things that she talks about is something that I even experienced as an executive communication coach before I was writing my book, which is what people think they need and what they say they need sometimes is different from what they actually need. And so my commitment to my clients that I take on is that I will help you acquire the skills that you are seeking, but I will actually help you acquire more than just that. So for example, people will come to me and say, I'm not feeling comfortable in high stakes contexts. I'm not feeling comfortable when I'm pitching or I'm meeting with my boss's boss and doing a presentation. I really need help with my presentation skills. And then I'll say, great. And we will work on those tactical presentation skills, but we'll also work on kind of the foundation of their mindset, which is confidence. It's a big part. And we'll also work on things like establishing their professional identity, which fuels their confidence. So in other words, I do answer the question of what they're trying to answer or the skills that they're trying to adopt, but then usually more.
Yeah. Well, that's what it sounds like. They come to you thinking they're getting this, and then they end up walking away with a lot more.
Yeah.
So you're so confident. How does one build this confidence?
You think I'm confident?
Yeah, you sound really confident.
I think what you may be sensing is a clarity in what I know. I don't think my baseline level of confidence is higher than most people, but I am crystal clear on my expertise. I do spend a lot of time thinking about this because I'm practicing what I preach, right? Like I tell people, if we spend time together identifying your unique strengths and expertise, that will boost your confidence, but also provide you with clarity and focus and direction. So when I signed into this interview, Sarah, I wasn't thinking, I'm so confident. I was just reminding myself of my expertise, right? My expertise is communication. My expertise is branding. My expertise is executive presence. And I can talk about those things. I'm so comfortable with those topics that I love it when people ask me a question that I haven't thought of before in that area, right? But I'm also not claiming to be an expert in anything else, and that's fine. So I think that's what you're hearing.
Yeah, it is. But I also think like that's what's resonating with people who are here listening, is that we're all potentially looking for answers for something that's just around the corner. And what I hear you also saying is, remember that if you know what you're going towards and you're able to articulate what you're doing, that will, for other people will assume you are confident, and that will build confidence at the same time.
Yeah, it's definitely a sequence, and people don't, I think, realize this, that if you start to get real confidence and clarity on what your strengths are, you will feel this elevated sense of self-esteem or confidence, depending, like the social psychologists call it a heightened self-esteem, right? At least in that area. And then when you're communicating with other people, they'll perceive it as improved credibility, because we believe people who have confidence in their convictions. And this is related to my work on personal branding and establishing your professional identity. People think personal branding is all about what other people perceive about you. And I'm like, it is, but let's start with what you think about you.
Okay, so would this be relevant? Like, would you work with someone who is 24 the same way that you would work with someone who's 44?
Sarah, you're knocking it out of the park here. Like, such good questions. Really. The answer is some of the concepts, certainly the principles of what we're doing would be the same, but there is some important nuance. So my 22-year-old son, who's quite active on LinkedIn, he sees what I've been doing. He's like, Mom, can you help me with my personal brand? And I said, no.
What?
Yeah, I said I can help you with your confidence. I can help you with, communicating with conviction. I said, and I will help you with your brand, but I don't want you to think about what your superpowers are and double down on that until you've spent a lot of time experimenting, checking out what other people are doing, time in the workplace and communicating with your colleagues, with the managers who are above you, with your clients or your customers or whoever your stakeholders are, and taking note of what other people are doing that impresses you and trying it. That can be a little dangerous later in your career. So early in your career, it's great. He got his university degree. He's very talented in languages. And I'm like, okay, so that's your brand. You went to an impressive university, you got a great degree, and you're good at languages. That's what you can put out there on LinkedIn. That's your brand for now. But in terms of your leadership style and the way that you communicate with others, you want to have an open mind and experiment. Versus if I was talking to a 55-year-old chief financial officer at a company, I would say, it's time to stop looking around at what other people and be true to yourself. What are your strengths? What works for you? And of course, it has to be put through a lens of being credible and effective for communicating to other people. But I think too many people late in their career are still thinking too much about what other people are expecting instead of doubling down on their unique strengths. And I say to this, like a very simple mental exercise, think of the happiest and most successful people that you know. They are focused on their unique strengths.
Yeah, focused on their unique strengths and not what you said, not evaluating their success based on someone else's success, but understanding that they're evaluating how their strengths worked for them that day. Like it's about them and them moving forward.
Exactly.
Is that one of the things that maybe people get wrong? Do we spend too much time comparing ourselves to other people and then wondering why we're not happy?
Absolutely. I say to people, the number one mistake that people make with their personal brand is not that they are afraid to talk about their strengths, which is also an issue, right? The
Right.
whole thing about self-promotion, but really it's about copying others or conforming to what others expect. If you think about branding, like branding is what are you doing to stand out? You can stand out best if you are really true to yourself. I'm writing a book about all this, and the chapter where I talk about this is called "Unique is Better Than Better." So stop thinking about how can I be better, and start thinking about what unique strengths do I have that I can start doubling down on.
Gosh, that's really important. I think that's a good reminder even for me also, or for lots
Yeah.
of people.
Yeah.
Do you think that sometimes we just need reminders of that? Like, wait a
Yeah.
minute. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It's so easy to get distracted. And I mean, it happens to all of us, including myself. I look around, I'm like, oh, that's so impressive. I should do that. And then I'm like, okay, stop. What are you doing, Andrea? Is it true to your strengths and your values and what you're putting together? And it's not that your brand should never evolve. In fact, it should evolve, but be careful about getting distracted by what other people are maybe prescribing is like the better version of you versus what you know is your true identity and strengths.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
I mean it. I really mean it.
Okay. Really listen to her. But, okay. So, but would you say, and tell me if I've got this right or wrong, that you had an article in the Harvard Business Review, right? And it was about introductions. Is that still true to your brand today, or are you an evolution of what that was?
So I'm definitely an evolution, and it is true to what I am today. In fact, my book is called Let Me Introduce Myself. So in chapter 1, I do teach that 3-point self-introduction framework. And then I end it with, okay, so now you know the basic framework to how to introduce yourself in any context with confidence. But do you really know yourself well enough to know what to say? And then we go through the whole process of the personal branding, identifying what your strengths are, especially what your unique strengths are, and then pulling it back into your self-introduction and all of the other ways that we communicate our professional identity.
I love that. And so for everyone who's listening, because I do like to share personal stories, I happened to be at, I guess it was a seminar or talk that Andrea was given at a time when I was really not really understanding who I was anymore, because I had left a career and a title and the C-suite thing that I thought this is what everybody wants. And I was struggling with like, I don't really know what I want now. And I remember sitting there and just everything you said resonated with me at the time. And I remember just like nodding my head because like I needed exactly to hear you at that point in time. So I want to say a personal thank you on air for doing that. I think that people sometimes when they're off at the top of a room, and I'm a presenter also, you don't really understand the impact you're having on somebody that day. You give your speech, you do your talk, you have your PowerPoint slide, you talk to people at the end and you move on. And very rarely do you get the chance to come back to someone and say like a genuine thank you. So I want to genuinely thank you because you are somebody who I listened to when I really needed it. And then I follow you on LinkedIn and listen and read everything that you're doing. And to be able to have you here today is just such an honor for me. But I love what you're saying about the introduction is still valid, but it's okay that who you are also shifts as you grow and change. That's incredible.
It's not only okay, I think it's fantastic. And I just want to say, Sarah, thank you for saying that explicitly. My favorite thing about my job is the knowledge that I've shared something with someone that has helped them transform to be their best self. And so I can see that with you. And I also want to make really clear to people that this work on establishing your personal brand or your professional identity doesn't always result in a change in what you're doing. So I commend you for making change, Sarah, in what you were pursuing based on some of the insights that you learned and that you took the time to think, internalize, and you did the work, right? So that does happen sometimes, but also very often people will come to me and they'll say, I'm not confident about my self-introduction. I really don't know if I'm even in the right career or what I want to do next. Can I do this work with you to improve my communication skills and to identify what my personal brand is? And we'll work together. And then at the end, or at some point in the engagement, they'll say, I'm starting to realize that, we've done this work together. We've identified these personal branding themes, and I'm doing exactly what I should be doing with my career. And I have this heightened sense of confidence now in what I'm doing because I have a real purpose. That also happens. So I want to make really clear, because a lot of people, they hear personal branding and they think, oh, she wants to turn me into a social media influencer, or, oh,
Right.
she wants to transform me into something that I'm not right now. And That is actually not true at all. I say this is not about reinventing you. It may be about discovering something about you that you didn't realize, but we're not reinventing anything. We're just helping you get clarity on your unique strengths.
So how often when you're speaking with people or coaching them is imposter syndrome a layer in there?
Almost 100% of the time.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually think imposter syndrome is a hugely misunderstood thing. I tell people who come to me and they say, help, I have imposter syndrome. I say, calm down. First of all, congratulations, because that means you're pushing yourself. Ambitious people experience imposter syndrome. People that are, flatlining, they're coasting, they don't experience imposter syndrome. So we should be celebrating it.
I agree. But why is that a word that everybody thinks is negative?
I'm going to nerd out for a second here. Back in 1978, two female social psychologists in the US did a paper where they did some research, interviewing and giving surveys to really understand what distinguishes the most successful female business executives from less successful female business executives. And they were looking for things like, they had parents that were great role models, they had great education, they had a mentor or a sponsor, the usual things. But this theme of feeling like an imposter kept coming up in most, if not all, of these successful women. And then they wrote this paper in 1978 called The Imposter Phenomenon and focused on women. And since then, it's become this thing that we all are told, for the most part, that we need to overcome. And, there's a lot of research on it. And we've come to realize it's not just women. Of course, it's not just the successful people. We all experience imposter syndrome. And based on what I've seen, the folks who do not talk about experiencing imposter syndrome, they often come across as arrogant. So I say for that reason, it's also a very good thing. So we should be celebrating it. I talk about this continuum where on one side we have paralyzing anxiety, like extreme imposter syndrome. On the other side of the continuum, we have arrogance. And in the middle, we have this beautiful equilibrium of kind of perfect confidence. And how do we keep that? We keep that by having a growth mindset, right? We're trying new things. So we're not paralyzed. We're trying new things and we're not arrogant. We have a growth. People who are arrogant do not have a growth mindset. They think they know everything, right? So you establish a true growth mindset. You double down on your unique strengths and you will keep right in the middle in this kind of perfect equilibrium. And when I share that with people, they're like, oh, I'm kind of doing that. I'm like, okay, good. So stop, like when you feel that adrenaline in your chest or however it manifests for you physically, that nervous feeling, say to yourself, all right, I'm ready to go. I got the positive energy, that spark of positive energy that I need to shine on stage or to shine in that meeting. And I'm going to double down on my unique strengths and my growth mindset. Here we go.
I love that. That is so key. Now, would that be advice that you'd give to the 24-year-old and the 44-year-old?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's universal.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need buttons. Like imposter syndrome is okay.
Oh, celebrate imposter syndrome. Totally.
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, imposter syndrome is hugely misunderstood. It's an easy one to crack, though, when you start really thinking about it, when you understand the research. First of all, I say the research was focused on successful female executives. Okay. Congratulations. You're joining the club of successful female executives.
Wow. I like that club. I want to be part of it.
Yeah, you are part of it, Sarah.
Thanks. So tell me about you. Like, how did you get to here? How did you get to today?
I think in my career and my passion for what I was pursuing, I was always really obsessed with marketing and branding. I volunteered at an advertising agency when I was in undergrad. I worked in consumer packaged goods marketing. I pursued a doctorate in marketing. I taught first year MBA marketing at the University of Toronto. That's really kind of been the North Star in my career, has been marketing and branding. And it wasn't until, I would say, when I was teaching in the MBA program, my best days when I would come home and I'd be like, I love my job, was when a student would come up to me after class and say, that thing you said, that really helped me. Or we'd do office hours and I'd be coaching them on their career, providing them with some opportunities, whatever it was. And I found that to be incredibly satisfying. And so then when I when I started the podcast and then I started doing one-on-one coaching and workshops, I realized my happy place is helping people transform into their best selves. So Sarah, I really mean this. When people tell me what you told me, it makes my day, my week, like easily. That'll be the thing that makes me smile all week.
Well, it was legit. And Heather can verify this, but when we decided we were going to do this together and launch this and we talked about the concept, I was like, I know exactly who I really want to have on. And that was you, because you are like walking the walk. It's amazing. And talking the talk.
Yeah, we're talking about talk.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
That's amazing. But
Yeah.
do you ever, I mean, like, honestly, if you're always helping people, like, do you ever get drained, or how do you stay on top of all this?
So last week, I fulfilled part of a contract that I have with a company where I did a 90-minute in-person workshop where you have to be on, right? Like you have your content, but you have to be there. It was interactive. And then one by one, I coached 13 executives one-on-one, like one after another, for an hour each, over 3 days. And I was thinking at the end of the day, I had this big smile on my face, and I thought, this is what people are talking about when they say, you know, if you're doing in your job what you love, it doesn't feel like work. I was like, most people, I'm 100% sure most people would be exhausted. There are certainly other things, like I hate managing my finances and kind of looking after the internal operations. I have had to hire some people. I am really fortunate that I have managed to attract some incredibly smart and talented people that help me with Talk About Talk behind the scenes in terms of our operations and our customer success. And I have an amazing virtual assistant that I, could not do this without her. So it's allowing me to double down on the things which I love doing, which is, leading workshops and creating podcast episodes and coaching senior executives one-on-one. Yeah. I'm sure.
Seems like you got this figured out.
Well, I'm also trying to write a book. So, right now I'm kind of working 6 days a week, which is not good.
Yeah.
I have certain boundaries or rules that I make for myself, right? Like on Saturday, I do not open my email. I do not open LinkedIn. I do absolutely no work. I hang out with my family. I hang out with my friends. I do stuff around the house or whatever it is, right? And I also, when I go on vacations, I'm like gone. Like I do not do the half vacation thing. So I realized recently, like over the December holidays and then over March break, I had like a week and a half and 2 weeks off. And when I came back, I was like, I wonder if I'm going to love it as much when I go back. And then after one day, I was like, yep, I do.
That's amazing. We were interviewing someone else, and they said, you're getting it right when you look forward to your Mondays. And you almost, it resonates with the same thing. Like you were on vacation and like, am I still going to love it just as much? And you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. That's hard though. So my 24-year-old self, I always thought one of the best qualities of me, or what was interpreted as me, is that I was always available and always on. So I never put the phone down. Or, I mean, back then, I don't even know if it was a phone. It would have been the laptop. That I carried it with me everywhere, and I was always available. And I always thought like that was my greatest strength, is that anybody needed me, I could answer their questions and do what they needed. And then quickly realized, oh, that's actually not my greatest strength. What they're actually looking for is that when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to follow through. I do know where the answers are and I can come up with solutions. They were different strengths, but I had to pivot on what that was. You seem really clear though on where your strengths are. Like, did you have a moment where you're like, okay, I thought this was my strength and it's not?
I mean, all the time, Sarah. I did all the things that you're talking about as well. Like working really late hours in the office, making sure that I was, the first one there, that I was contributing in every meeting, all that stuff. And, I did another post recently where I was talking about how, to me, the big stressful, I'm an extrovert. I have no problem raising my hand and saying something in a meeting. But my mind, when I was in my 20s, my objective was to say the thing that I knew my boss's boss agreed with. And I realize now Like, how about asking questions that makes your boss's boss say, wow, great question, right? Or even identifying something in the meeting that someone said that got brushed over. Like, there's all these things that you can say and do that are more aligned with what's actually valuable and driving the company forward. And that said, we do have to have a baseline level of demonstrating commitment. So it's not like it didn't matter at all. But I think the message here, Sarah, or the learning is to be really careful what metrics you're evaluating yourself against or that you're pushing yourself towards, right?
Absolutely. And the metrics, I think, shift for you. I also think that changes as you move up in your career. The metrics will also shift there also.
Absolutely. Because it goes from doing the work. Like I said, these people have this epiphany. I acquired all these skills. I was doing the work. And now it's about communicating, right? It's about actually leading other people who are doing the work and, being a strategic leader and communicating clearly, all of that stuff. It's a massive shift. It is.
Yeah, and I think listening, I mean, that was something that I probably still need to learn is sometimes the people who have the best ideas aren't the ones who are the loudest in the meeting, putting their hand up and saying, "Well, what about this?" That looking for, are other people processing information? Are they writing ideas down? Do I need to go tap that person individually later? Because I think they might have something, but they're not willing right now to share it in the room. But me as a leader, that's my job, is to go chat with them and to pull out the best of everybody in whatever way they need.
Yeah. So two things about that. So one is, Sarah, I can already tell you just based on this conversation right here and right now that you are a great listener, because otherwise, I mean, you're not answering me the scripted. You're not asking
No, we
me.
haven't used any of these. I don't even know why this is
scripted.
here.
So you're deeply listening to what I'm saying and then asking the question that you're curious about and that maybe the listeners would be curious about. So it's about taking that kind of listening into other contexts. And I have been told, this is a bit of an aside, it's a bit whatever personal, but I have been told in the moment probably like 30 times by individual clients, like, Andrea, oh my God, you are such a good listener. You listen and then you synthesize and you articulate what my strengths, like, this is from one-on-one coaching, right? And they'll say, you listen and then you are able to interpret and articulate what my strengths are in a way that even I wouldn't be able to do. And I'm thinking, yeah, maybe when I'm doing one-on-one coaching, I have that superpower, but ask my family if I'm a great listener, right? So I'm challenging myself now to, when I'm in the moment, no matter who I'm talking to, even if it's not a coaching client, to try to use that level. And the other thing I would say is you can't be at that high level listening 100% of the time. In fact, I do workshops on listening and I tell senior executives, it's more about being self-aware. Like, am I not listening? Am I passively listening, which means pretending to listen? Sometimes that's the level that you should be at, actually. Then there's active listening, which is, paying great attention. And then there's the generative listening, which I think is what you're doing right now, which is based on what she's saying and what I'm thinking, together we can create something magical, right? So listening is huge. It's hugely underrated. People think about communication, they think about projecting, not actually listening.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great point. Okay, I'm going to tap back into your book for a second for someone who's writing books, thinking about what we're saying and where we need to go. If you could name a chapter of where your life today in your book, this is a question we ask everybody, what would be the name of the title of your chapter?
Of where I am right now?
Yeah.
Oh my God, Sarah. Let me think. It would be, I'm trying to think of something too clever. It would be hitting your stride, something cliche like that about, leveraging the strengths and the experience that I have into something that I love, that is also adding value for other people.
I want to add to that. I think it's also hitting the stride of helping other people feel the power of a great stride.
Oh.
I think for you, that's me telling you what I'm hearing, but
Yeah.
that's what's so key. I mean, I think since COVID, people don't really wear high heels, maybe, or maybe they do. I don't post COVID.
Yeah.
But there was power in walking in an office down a hallway with your heels on, with the click, 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 and you felt powerful. And what I heard you just say and what resonated visually for me in my mind was, oh yeah, that moment where I wore a great suit, I felt powerful, I sounded powerful, and I was going in to deliver a great message. To me, that's what it sounds like you're helping other people to achieve today.
Yes, that resonates very much. And it's not just communicating by what you're saying, right? It's like how you're feeling internally, and it's how you're when you walk into the room, people see how you're dressed before you open your mouth, so they're making judgments about you, and this is all related to personal branding. So, yeah, I love it.
Love it. Well, where can people find more out about you?
So 2 places you can see more about what I do. If you go to talkabouttalk.com, everything's there. And I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. As I said, I try not to go there on Saturdays, but I'm on LinkedIn and it's just my name, Andrea Wojnicki.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. I think it's so important to, again, say this, that there are people who walk in your life at the right time that really help impact. And I'm so honored to have you here to share your voice and story with everybody in this podcast. So thank you very much for the time.
Sarah, thank you so much for inviting me. I genuinely enjoyed this conversation so much, and I'm so impressed with what you're doing, and I'm very happy for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, Heather, come on in here. It's time for our gut check. Okay, I was fangirling for sure through that one.
Yeah. Yes, you were.
And I have to say why.
With good reason.
Yeah, with good reason. And I mean, I love everybody we chat with, and I think that that's so important to say. And I feel like this podcast is already changing my life, and I hope it's helping to be reflective for other people also. But I want to make sure I preface this, that when we even came up with the concept of what this podcast was, it was truly personal for me because I have made some really big pivots in my life. And I think it's this whole reason, the savoir-faire of the whole thing is that I wanted to build a voice to something that I wish I had had to listen to in the pivotal moments where I was very unsure of myself, because I wasn't sure I had made the right choices, even though I thought I would. I had so much doubt. I didn't know. And Andrea, I happened to be at, it was a YPO women's only event, and there were different speakers, and she was like a big part of it. And I'm sure we all have these moments in their lives, but I truly mean it. Remember sitting there where I was at a circular table with some incredible women that are just knock your socks off, amazing people. And I had my book, and sometimes you like listen to different presentations, you're not really ready for it, and you're like, yeah, this will be great. And she just started speaking, and I still even remember opening my book, taking out my pen, and just writing and writing, because everything she was saying at the time, it just felt like something I needed to hear. And like there are those people in your lives. And so that's who she was for me at that point in time. She really helped me without even, like, I think at the end I said thank you, but like, I mean, I didn't really know her. She was just a very impactful speaker. So I want to share that in a very vulnerable way by also sharing that there are points in my life that I was very unsure about what to do. And I want to bring voice to that and normalize that there are times when we can be incredibly confident with what we're doing, and also times where we're full of self-doubt. And like she said, maybe it's that imposter syndrome because you're actually pushing yourself without realizing that that's actually what you're doing, and you're actually kind of unsure.
That really resonated with me when she said that, about the imposter syndrome, because it always makes me feel small that I'm like, even thinking that way. I think, oh, confident people wouldn't think like that, but that's not necessarily the case.
And I loved how she said, if you never were pushing yourself, you would never experience imposter syndrome. Because like, man, I think that really resonated also. Because it is true. It is the moments where you've really stepped out of your comfort zone, that you're trying something new, that you're feeling that. Do you think there's a range of imposter syndrome though?
Maybe not the way you're thinking it, but some days I wake up and I'm like, I've got this. I know what I'm doing. And then like 8:05, I'm like, oh my God. I have no idea what's happening right now. And so I don't know if that's just confidence in general or like imposter syndrome, because I didn't have a traditional like training for this stuff, that I'm like, And that's also what was going to be my question is like, do people who are trained properly, like business school, MBA, like do all the things, do they still have imposter syndrome, or do they have less of it because they're sort of trained so strategically for it, or lawyers or whoever, right? Like, I'm curious. I just feel like I have it a lot because I've sort of manifested my job.
Ooh, so does it come in manifesting because it's like, I want something else? So is imposter syndrome, do you think, the same as like fake it till you make it?
But I think it's the opposite side of it, because fake it till you make it is a confidence where you're like, well, I can just fake it till I make it and I'm good. Like, you feel good in the unknown. You're okay with it. Then at 8:05, you're like, uh-oh. Like, I had this happen to me last week where I was like, I've been doing this a while. I know, like, I don't know everything, but I have systems in place. And an email came through and I was like, I have no idea. I have no idea how to handle that situation.
Isn't that common? Like, don't we?
Is it common? I don't know.
Because there's lots of times in my mind that I'm like, I don't really know, but this is what I think. And based on whatever experience, this is what I would respond with, sometimes trying to be more confident. But you just made me think like, wait, but isn't that normal?
I think for me, the imposter syndrome comes out more when I'm like, why didn't I think of that? I built a business and it's supposed to be perfect because people come to me because I can do something for them. And then I realize I've totally missed something about it that I should already have. I forget where I read this morning and it really helped me, but it was like that this is the iteration of your business today. 5 years ago, I didn't know that, right? Like, it's a different iteration and that's okay. That I'm constantly trying to move it forward. But I have that perfection, like, well, I should have known. That's my imposter syndrome. I should have known.
Isn't that, I feel like I'm going to misquote this, but I think it was Oprah, and someone was asking her, how did she do everything that she did in life? Because she really has done a lot. And her answer was, because I knew what I wanted. And so many people move through life and don't really understand what they want. So they're not going to get what they don't want. Or something like that. Like, this is not a direct quote.
No.
But that's pretty impactful. Like, do you know what you want?
I was going to ask you the same thing.
I want this podcast to be great. I want lots of listeners, but I also want this to be something that is the real conversation that has a platform today that I don't think has today. That we are solving for something that is speaking to many people, that says, yes, this helped me reframe, think, validate, feel comfort in, build community around. I want the growth of this for the right thing, which is to be able to contribute to something, which we've talked about before.
Yep.
But to really feel like, sometimes I need Heather and Sarah. I want to be that for other people. And I hope we are. Do you want the same?
Yes. It's less about the numbers and the build, like, we talk about it all the time in podcasting. It's like, you have to build for this, and this is how you do things on YouTube, and this is where your audience is. But like, actually thoughtfully crafting what you're solving for with your show was like more impactful. Like, that was a layer I think I leave on the table, because so many people are like, how many connections do you have on LinkedIn? What is your YouTube channel? Like, they go to metrics, and some of them are vanity metrics. They have nothing to do with, who you're impacting with the conversation. And to be honest, I never thought really I would be able to impact people with a conversation, but I see the value that you're bringing to do it.
Well, I think we're both bringing to it.
Well,
and
it's fun to be along on the ride, like to talk things through and have this conversation. It's been interesting already, and it's just early days, right?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I think, and then layering on that, like, what do I want? I also want the ability to have impact in leadership, in business, to help elevate people's voices. And that can generate more revenue, build efficiencies, create operational alignment, better satisfaction in work, new products being released. I think that's important. And maybe I haven't made a clear enough line between what this podcast does and how that can help in business. But I think there is an absolute distinct parallel here, because when we have a better understanding of how we can come to what we're doing and we understand why we're doing it, what our motivation is, that transcends into business beautifully. And I think those are also the pieces. I think, I mean, we're all learning in terms of leaders, but I've led lots of people now and have had different conversations. And I think sometimes it's not how many people followed me or liked me or clicked on me. It's just how real was that conversation? And then how did that impact your life? Speaking of real, my dog is about Hi, Lenny. Who let you down here? Okay, we have to edit that out because we can't see him. Okay, good. Sorry.
That's okay. I keep muting mine because I'm like, I know Frank's going to walk through the door any minute and they're all going to go crazy.
Anyways, I forget what we were talking about.
Well, the impact that you want to have with the podcast, and not like the numbers and things like that, but more being a resource for people, right? That you didn't have or we didn't have. But also when she talked about like conversation and communication and all of that, like, I don't know, I thought that was an interesting part of the conversation. Was there anything you didn't ask her that you wanted to in the midst of your fangirling?
I feel like I was really fangirling there, yeah.
It was very genuine though, right?
No, it absolutely is genuine. Like that was so cool. I think I wanted to ask her the downside of it. Like, have you ever coached someone and it went really wrong? Because she's so confident and it's all about building confidence. I think I wished I'd asked her, like, tell me one when it just didn't work. The underside of it all. I bet she'd have a great story. I wonder if she'd tell it or not.
Yeah, she probably does. Because sometimes I would suspect, I'm not a coach, but like people aren't ready. They think they're ready, but then they're not ready, right? To hear what has to be said.
Mm-hmm. And talking about like looping back into business, I actually think that's the same conversation when you're facilitating a meeting and we're trying to plan or solve for some kind of issue, right? And we need to make a change, new product feature or better alignment with an ICP. Like there's some problem that we're all meeting as a group to talk about. You have to kind of be ready to talk about that and to be able to growth and think beyond what it is currently in the room and how does this actually link into the revenue target that you want to make a year from now or 5 years from now. And I think that's important. And I appreciate that she's getting hired by very successful leaders. That makes me feel good about the state of business, that kind of characteristic is now something that we're building in top leaders, which hopefully means that they're mentoring, that's trickling down in organizations, these truer conversations about understanding what is it that you want, how do you articulate that, and that has meaning and power that will help you in your careers. Now, one thing she did say that I didn't really push back on, and I probably should have, is, and we chatted a little bit about it, which is something I had to learn when I was younger. Sometimes the doer, the one who is always available, can always answer the question, always has the solution, actually doesn't get the promotion. They're actually ones that can sometimes get stuck under some leaders who love that they can do everything for the leader and they don't actually get the promotion. And it's actually somebody else that's not as good at those things because it's almost like they can be sacrificed. So the really great person gets stuck in their role and the person who's not so great gets moved ahead. I don't know. Have you kind of witnessed that kind of thing before?
So not in that respect, because I, again, don't really move around up the corporate ladder, but I early on in my business was like, I'll be everything to everybody and I'll always respond to the text messages and I'll solve problems on the weekends. And I like doing stuff like that. And I have a life that affords me to work kind of whenever, because again, I don't have kids and stuff like that. But I got to a point now where I'm like, is that the only value that I bring? That I'm the one who will do all the things when everybody else won't, like after hours, weekends, things like that, and hustle. And then I had like an existential crisis about it where I'm like, actually, do I bring more value than that? Just being the person who can put out a fire on a weekend. Like I still think about it often.
Yeah.
Because as I try to scale, I don't have a team that's willing to do all that, nor would I ever ask them to.
Mm-hmm. One thing I did like, though, that she did offer as a really good tip, and I hope that everybody took that away, was thinking about your boss's boss and thinking through how can you help ask a really good question for your boss's boss to think about. And I was like, yes, that's the way. I want to add to that. That's the way you move out from under being the person who is always answering the emails and is always able to answer the questions, is when you start asking or thinking beyond what is the immediate need, and that not only the one leader in the room hears you, but your leader's leader hears you, and you're asking such critical conversation, or you're asking such critical questions that helps them be reflective. Now you're so valuable that you might get pulled up from a different leader, not necessarily the one you have, and you get out of that just being the solution provider for one.
So cool.
I know, I feel like there were so many great tips in that talk. Well, thanks for the time today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for listening to Why to the Way. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend, colleague, or someone navigating a crossroads of their own. Make sure to follow Why to the Way wherever you get your podcasts, and find us on social media for more insights, updates, and conversations between episodes. Until next time, keep asking the question, what would you have done in the same situation?